Ruddock. Razor Ruddock. 10 straight knockouts. Big left hand, too. Almost killed Michael Dose. Everybody's saying I'm making a big mistake. Tokyo. Ruddock. Ruddock.
Tyson versus Ruddock. Live from the Mirage, March 18th. See it on pay-per-view cable TV.
Why is Tyson fighting Ruddock?
What's the use of being in the business if you're not the best?
You're only as good as your competition.
He has to go through this in order to become the greatest.
It's time to find out who the toughest sucker is.
Right hand and a left upper.
Knocking Tyson out is a shortcut of becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
If you don't fight me, you won't sleep good.
He knows he's superior to Mike Tyson, but it has to be proven.
If you're not afraid of Tyson, you got 90% of the fight.
It's Tyson all the way here in round number 1. Starts with a body. Trouble.
And if I wasn't excited about fighting here in the Mirage, I would love to go to Jamaica, his hometown, and kick his ass.
And because you think that way, you're going to put a nail in his coffin, just by talking like that.
Maybe Tyson took this fight to quiet the voice inside his own head that said he was afraid to do it.
Tyson is like
March 18th, Mike Tyson, Razor Ruddock dies. If he doesn't die, it doesn't count. If he's not dead, it doesn't count.
The question is why. The answer is here. Welcome to a special edition of the Showtime Championship Boxing Report. Blind Rage. Tyson versus Ruddock. Now, here's your host, Steve Albert.
Ring analysts and boxing experts are all asking the same question. Why? Why will Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock climb into this ring and battle it out March 18th here at the Mirage Hotel and Casino? Wouldn't it be more sensible, more lucrative to wait for the big money of a championship fight? Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock, however, don't care about the analysts and experts because they're fighters. Fighters in the most basic sense of the word. They care instead about one thing, and one thing only. Who can whip who in the most brutal of sports, boxing? During this half hour, as the stories of these two men unfold in their own words and the words of their closest friends and advisors, you'll discover that this is not a fight motivated by political expediency, common sense, or even money. It is instead a fight made to satisfy the blind rage of these pure fighters. For Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock, the question has never been why they should fight. Instead, for them, it's always been, why not?
The big question here is why is Tyson fighting Ruddock? Why? Ruddock knocked out one guy for 7 minutes, knocked out another one for 12, almost killed Michael Dokes. He's a guy that shatters collarbones, breaks ribs, breaks jaws. Why would Tyson want to fight a man like this?
Tyson had to take this fight. Beating Stewart is one thing. Fighting Ruddock is another. And he had to prove to the boxing world that he is Iron Mike. Iron Mike.
There's something standing in his way, and he got to prove it to himself that, I mean, you think all the guys that he's beaten so far would have, if he beats me, that would be the greatest out of all of it.
Why not? If I didn't fight him now, I have to fight him later anyway. But the fact is, I feel I'm the best fighter in the world. I shouldn't have to duck anybody. I never duck anybody. What's the use of being in the business if you're not the best?
I think Mike Tyson has a great deal of confidence in himself now. This is the kind of fight that he has to verify that confidence. So he beat two guys that were scared to death of him. Now he's going to go in with a young, tough kid that can punch. And it's his first real test.
Razor Ruddock poses one hell of a challenge. I mean, this is not a man who's going to come in the ring looking like he's the ex where the accident happened, as Alex Stewart did, and before him, Henry Tillman. You won't see skid marks. He'll stand right up to him.
And Razor Ruddock, he's 25-1-1. You're talking about a guy that's coming off a spectacular win with Dokes. He's got all the credentials. He's big. He can punch. He's got everything you look for. He could score another great upset over Tyson if he keeps focused.
Ruddock's left hook is an awesome weapon. I mean, it is, it is the most powerful single shot in heavyweight boxing, and obviously heavyweights are the hardest hitters in boxing. He can knock anybody out with that shot.
His left hook is such a devastating weapon. because of the angle that he throws it at you from. And it's a little hard to stop the punch that he throws when he gets it off, because you never know when it's coming.
Named his left hand the smash because it comes right at you like a slamming door. And there's really no defense for it. And once we get a guy with his hands up, such as Mike Tyson, he's dead. He's doomed.
Since Razor punches the hardest with his left hand, what we have done, we have practiced and we've developed the right hand so that he can have just as much power. Now he's got not one weapon, but he's got two weapons going for him. He's got the smasher, and he's got the tomahawk.
I was trying to figure out who was going to be champion after Larry Holmes. And I saw this kid fight Mike Weaver, Donovan Razor Ruddock.
I didn't get no money for that fight, but just the fact that I was fighting Mike Weaver, the former heavyweight champion of the world, motivate me, and I want to prove to myself that I can beat this guy.
The way I saw him defend himself, box, get command control, so that's the champion.
Bone Crusher is known statistic-wise as the strongest fighter out there today. The man with the strongest chin, physical ability, bar none. We went into his backyard and we've been knocked down by the former WBA champion.
Sends Ruddock down.
This kid jumped up. He was upset. He couldn't believe that he was knocked down. Now that punch that Bone Crusher hit him with would have knocked anybody dead. But this kid jumped up and he surprised everybody and knocked out the Bone Crusher 2 rounds later.
He's in trouble, Tim. More right hand and a left uppercut. Smith goes down.
That showed me what kind of guts this kid has got and ability.
A 7th round knockout by Donovan Razor Ruddock.
Coming up, the fight that never happened. Did Mike Tyson catch a cold or a case of cold feet? The real story next.
I think for Tyson to beat Ruddock, he has to work behind the jab, which he's not necessarily been doing in his more recent fights. And of course, he needs to be as explosive as he typically is. I think it's fairly much that simple.
Ruddock has to measure Mike. He has to get his range down in the first couple of rounds, keep Mike off of him with a jab. And if he gets that uppercut working inside, body shots and shots to the head coming from down low, Mike's in big trouble.
Tyson's going to have to be a little quicker, a little more elusive, and he's just going to really, his defense is going to have to be totally up to speed, because you make one mistake with Ruddock and you're on your back.
Ruddock has to fight the sort of fight that James Buster Douglas fought. He has to show lateral movement and be able to counterpunch Tyson as Tyson moves in. He's got a very good jab, and he's got a very good left hook. He showed it against Michael Dokes that he can hurt men.
What Tyson has to do to beat Razor is to stay in control of himself. Remember to move his head and to move his shoulders and do some body feints and not just to go in there wild, because I don't think Razor's going to be intimidated like some of his past opponents have, and you're just going to have to not leave yourself wide open, because Ruddock punches up and he punches hard.
What Ruddock has to do is not go mano-a-mano with Tyson in the first round. He's got to stick and move. He's got to get out of the way of Tyson, because Tyson is going to try to put him out in 1 round. He's got to move around, throw the rhythm off, throw Tyson's rhythm off. If he does that, he gets him into the later rounds. Tyson, we know, is a different fighter in the later rounds than he is in the early rounds. That's what he has to do to beat him.
I think Mike has to be right on top of Razor. I think he has to stay inside on him and back him up, because Razor is very strong, and he's got terrific punches inside coming up with his fist. He's a great uppercutter, and Mike's going to have to be very careful. Of course, Tyson has one of the great uppercuts also. So it's a fascinating fight.
Frankly, I was pretty surprised when Tyson signed to fight us November 1989 in Edmonton, because we're thinking, oh, it's going to take us such a long time before we get to Mike Tyson.
His next fight is scheduled against Donovan Razor Ruddock.
It was supposed to be a day full of hype, the birth of Donovan Razor Ruddock's training camp in Oakville, Ontario. Instead, Ruddock was in a suit, and the news conference was more of a post-mortem.
At the time, I didn't really believe that they would back out of the fight, because here's the most mightiest man on planet Earth, these guys are supposed to say he is, right? He never backed out of a fight before. 36 fights, he'd been going in there, boom, 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 knocking another one out. He came up against one guy from Canada, and he said, for what reason? What is the reason?
Mr. Tyson is and has been bothered by a condition known as costochondritis. It's a pleuritic chest pain Because of that condition, it will be impossible for him to fight November 18th and for us to hold the fight card.
Had no reason to interpret his words. He said Mike Tyson had a cold for that day. It did not say that Mike Tyson could not continue a week from then, that his diagnosis of Mike Tyson was only for that day, not for a week from now or 2 weeks from now. He did not say that Mike Tyson was too sick to get in the ring with Razor Ruddock.
Everybody knows that everybody gets sick sometimes. It doesn't matter what you do. Mike Tyson is no different. So happened that day when he got sick this time, it was during the Edmonton fight. And that's the only reason the Edmonton fight was ever postponed.
Maybe he wasn't at 110%. Or maybe he was just scared. We really can't really say.
That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? For anyone to ever think that I was afraid of him. That's not true at all.
But it's evident that Mike Tyson pulled out of the fight because he was going to make a great deal of money over in Tokyo, and he was taking on that he thought an inferior fighter like Buster Douglas.
No, that's not quite true. The Tokyo fight was made before the fight in Edmonton. And so we had to fit the fight in Edmonton in. So it was split into a closed niche schedule, and unfortunately, we couldn't give no postponement clause because the next fight would have been the fight that was already made with the Douglas people.
When I was watching the Buster Douglas Tyson fight in Tokyo, I was over by Razor's house, and we were both watching it together. And we were thinking to ourselves, what are we doing here? And Buster Douglas in Tokyo fighting Tyson. That should have been us. That's our fight. We got cheated. We hope he get his butt kicked. I got excited.
After 4 minutes, I said, please, don't let this man die. We didn't come here to kill him. We just come here to prove to the world we're the greatest.
When Razor hits a guy like that, it's time to call the ambulance.
His day is done. He's through. That he should just get out of it. And let Razor continue on to become the heavyweight champion of the world.
Is Razor sharp enough to beat Iron Mike, or will Tyson dull the Razor's edge? It's all coming up next.
Mike Tyson has to remember that he's not only a great puncher, but he's a great boxer. He has to move his head. He has to be elusive. He can't come straight up, standing erect, and expect to get away from Razor Ruddock's left hook. He also has to jab. Mike Tyson has short arms, but he was always a tremendous jabber because of his timing. He has to remember that this guy with his left hand could put him in the balcony. Razor Ruddock can punch, but Tyson, if he boxes, if he remembers how, can still win this fight and make it look easy.
For Ruddock to win, he's going to have to do two things, one of which is not go backwards. That gives Mike Tyson the only gear he knows, forwards. At that given magic moment, if he hasn't lost the fight, he's lost at least the momentum towards winning the fight. The second thing he's going to have to do is not just rely on his left hook. He's got to set it up. He's got to set it up naturally. He's going to have to use a left jab.
What Tyson has to do is go back to his old art of intimidation, come right across the ring, charging across the ring like he did with Alex Stewart, like he did not do so well with Buster Douglas. would get Ruddock's respect right away, and then I don't think he can take him out like he could Stewart, but he has to get that started. He has to set the pace immediately and then go from there.
For Donovan Ruddock to beat Mike Tyson, I think he has many of the tools, which include he needs to be tall, quick, big, strong. He needs to work behind a left jab. Left uppercuts also work well for Tyson, as do right leads and right crosses. He has many of those tools. We'll just see if he can put them together.
Tyson is going to have to put together an entire fight plan. If he does, and bobs and weaves and throws the left, he can win.
After the fight, right? No hard feelings. When you go back to Jamaica, you see really why I beat you. That's the reason why you're going to know why I beat you. All right?
Oh, God. You're not talking for real.
Oh, me?
The reason why I want to take Mike Tyson down to Jamaica is to show him where he came from, the foundation from which he came, to let him know the reason why he is, and he's not afraid of Mike Tyson.
In Razor Ruddock's eyes, I don't know what I'm going to see. That's the problem. If I would see the same intensity there, I think we would be in for a big upset. But I do not know what's going to be in Razor Ruddock's eyes.
I do think about Mike Tyson quite a bit. Yeah. That's why I get guys who look like him, too. When I'm training, I'm trying to picture myself in a situation where he is throwing punches and I'm trying to see them, I'm blocking them, so I'm playing it over in my mind.
I don't think that Razor should be scared. I don't believe that Razor feels that he should be afraid of another man because he has the same tools and he believes that his tools are better than the guy that's going to be in front of him. I'm more than positive Razor is confident that he can punch and knock this guy out. I'm confident that he's confident that he can knock this guy out. So therefore, he has nothing to be afraid of. Maybe Tyson is afraid of him.
In Mike Tyson's eyes, you're going to see confidence and anxiousness to hurry up and get it on and to try to physically do damage as quick as possible.
I'm not like a ruthless, bloodthirsty fighter. It's just I have no emotion when it comes to my job. You know what I mean? To win, to lose. You know what I mean? You can't be personal. You can't feel sorry.
Right back with you. Right back with you. Stick. Don't wait. There you go.
I honestly believe that he never fought a fighter like me. I mean, it's good that he's big and strong, but I really honestly believe that I'm the best.
Maybe the biggest issue here is the psychological makeup of Ruddock. Tyson has faced his big nights and he's won. Ruddock hasn't.
I signed a contract. I'm going to fight Mike Tyson, so I'm just going to have to go do it. There's no... What I can't understand is that you're going in there to fight him. You're going to hit you either way. If you stay back, he's going to hit you. If you go to try and knock him out, he's going to try and hit you, right? So why stay back and take a hit? Why not try and knock him out?
The fact that he's in for the first time against a really tough, aggressive man who has harmful intentions in mind is what he's going to have to overcome.
By all means, trust me, the fight is not going to be as hard as everyone thinks it is.
You have to say that over and over, that it's not going to be a tough fight. It's not going to be as tough as people say it is. But deep down inside, you know it's going to be hell.
I don't know, because all through my career, I've heard this is going to be the toughest fight you have, and I go in there and knock the guy out in 35 seconds. So we just have to see.
I think I can punch harder than he does. And I think that I can box better than he do. And the fact that he don't know who I am, know exactly what he's up against as much as I know. It's going to be more like a surprise towards him.
Well, I've been hearing him for a long time. Yeah, I take it all with a grain of salt. Only thing I take serious is what you can prove in the ring. But I'm sure one thing, he's going to have a big surprise.
King-size questions and winning answers. Coming up, you'll see what we mean. But first, these predictions.
I predict Mike Tyson in 5 very tough rounds to win by a stoppage. Not a clean knockout, but a stoppage.
I pick Ruddock by a knockout. I don't know how many agree with me outside of Ruddock, but I just think he has the style to knock out Mike Tyson.
The key element early in the fight will be, what does Ruddock do as Tyson moves in? Does he absorb punishment, or is he whacking him pretty good with counter punches? If he's hitting him with counter punches, it's going to be an interesting evening. If he's absorbing punishment and retreating, then we're probably looking at a Tyson victory.
This should be one of those fights where anything can happen, probably will, and I don't want anybody to put a gun on my head right now without seeing Tyson, especially in the gym. You know, I want to see Tyson a few days before the fight. I want to see if he's remembering all the things that he once learned, all the things that maybe Richie Giacchetti has taught him. If he is Mike Tyson revisited, I would pick Tyson. If he's not, I got to go with Ruddock.
My prediction is Tyson in 3 or 4 rounds. I would, though I will hedge on that a little and say that Ruddock certainly is the best opponent he's had in quite some time.
Despite all the respect I have for Razor Ruddock, and I do, I still would have to go with Tyson. I don't think he's going to be able to knock Ruddock down, but I think he will back him in the ropes eventually. I think that he will kind of render him defenseless, even so that'll be hard to do with Ruddock, but I think it will be stopped probably somewhere in the 7s.
I think Mike will be successful at putting pressure on Razor early. I think he'll start getting to him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, and I think he'll stop Razor, let's say 5th or 6th round.
I think this is going to be like one of those old, Pier 6 brawls. Look like a fight in a saloon in the Old West on a Saturday night. And I think once the Rock'em Sock'em robots are done, I think you'll see Mike Tyson knocking out Razor Ruddock in the 6th round.
They were saying before that Tyson was getting the patsies and the mismatches and the tomato cans, and now they're saying when he gets a real challenge, why would this man be crazy enough to fight Razor Ruddock?
The idea of the #1 and #2 contenders, Razor Ruddock and Michael Tyson, squaring off to see who's left standing, makes the most sense in the world to me. That's the way it used to be in the old days.
All boxing fans in the universe are talking about it. Why would he take on Razor Ruddock? The fans on the street corners are saying, why? In the barbershops when they're cutting hair, saying, why?
Razor just don't knock you out. He puts you to sleep. So if you ask me why, I don't know why in the world would Mike Tyson take this fight.
You know, in the movie theaters, when they're in the lobby and talking about what's going on in sports, why would he take on Razor Ruddock? Every arena, every sports arena, every gym is saying why.
I just fight. I expect, anticipate things. I don't say, well, but always look, I won't be watching out for his left hand all the time. I won't be, I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm just from the whole barometer of the situation. I just look and I just fight.
He have a lot of raw power. He's strong and he can punch. And he don't have any intention of going the distance. It's either you get it or he gets you.
I can fight anybody, I don't understand the fact why I have to wait, and not being active. I just want to fight.
In Tyson having this type of courage, this type of intensity, this type of ability and capability to go into the ring and take on the foes that everyone else would fear. Why Ruddock, a man that knocks out guys for 7 minutes, a man that breaks shoulder bones and cracks ribs, knocks out guys, almost kills Dokes, and then ends up, Tyson chooses him.
Hanging on, trying to make the best showing and getting his nail with a right uppercut. I don't know if he can get up for this one. It's up to 3 and 4 and 5, and I don't think he'll get up. It's up to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I guess he's counting them out.
I think I'm different because it's destiny. Honest, I just feel that I'm different because I want it bad. I train hard, and I put a lot of time into this. And I figured that I was blessed.
When Razor Ruddock walks into that ring on March the 18th, I know what's going through his mind. He says it's like 2 gunfighters. You just got to know who's the fastest, even though you know one's gonna die. You just got to know.
That 10,000, this fight goes any distance. Very, very important. Oh, with the left hand. It was a short right hand that did the damage. Now Ruddock trying to get the crowd back on his side. Is Odom gonna make it up? No. It's all over. 3rd round knockout.
Insanity is the rule rather than the exception. We're no longer dealing with what would be real and practical. We're dealing with a fury that's burning in the breast of men that no one can dampen. until they find out for themselves.
You know, everybody's asking the question, why did Mike Tyson fight Razor Ruddock? I get the sense, talking to Mike, that he's got a rage in him, a blind rage, to prove that Tokyo was an accident. I don't know whether that blind rage is directed entirely at Razor Ruddock or perhaps more accurately at himself. But he's got something to prove.
That is why that collision in the desert will take place between Tyson and Ruddock. This is ego time. This is time for bragging rights. And we're going to find out on March 18th when Tyson answers the question why he took on Ruddock.
True fighters need to fight. Mike Tyson knows that, and Razor Ruddock knows that. They don't care about the safest career move or the most prudent course of action. What they do care about is fighting, and fighting the best. That's why when they enter this ring here at the Mirage Hotel and Casino, they'll write the final chapter of this story, not with their words, but with their fists. For both Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock are consumed by the blind rage needed to be true fighters. And you can see it, Mike Tyson versus Razor Ruddock, live Monday, March 18th, only on pay-per-view. This is Steve Albert, and thank you for watching this special edition of the Showtime Championship Boxing Report. Blind Rage, Tyson versus Ruddock.